Alright guys, welcome to some blue team stuff for the CyberHawks Cyber Challenge. I'm going to be going over some useful commands for some active incident response in a Windows environment for the competition. One thing to note, I will be going over some commands that John has already covered in one of his command line introduction videos. I am reiterating them here just in case you forgot, and because they're super useful. So the first set of commands that we're going to be going over is the net series of commands. So net users, net local groups, all that good stuff. So let's get right into it. So typically when you log into your Windows environment, you want to check to see what accounts exist on the machine. So currently I'm on my on my laptop, so we can check what users exist. You can do net user and net users, same thing. And I have the administrator account and then my account. So on a server, you might have a couple more. You might have some local admins. You might have some people who are logged in currently, some regular user accounts. You might see a little bit more, but it's good to get an idea of how many users there are on the box, as then you have a better idea of what the red team is going to be trying to get after, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to get user accounts to be able to log onto the box. So this is super important. And the accounts also serve as jump off points, right? We're trying to get to admin, so we own your box completely. So net users gives us an idea of just general users. Net local group administrators, there we go, can't spell. This is going to be, this command tells you who is in the local admins, so the local machine admins, and the last command we're going to go over is net group administrators. I always forget how to spell it. Now this command's not going to work on my local Windows machine, but it will work when you are on the Windows server. And I'll actually tell you here, this only works on a domain controller, so that's the Windows server. Basically what this is it tells you the administrators for the entire domain. If you're unfamiliar with Active Directory, domains can be multiple servers and multiple computers and laptops and all that good stuff. So the domain is like the entirety of all those computers together, who is an administrator across all of them. And typically when you're trying to pen test a Windows environment, you are shooting for the domain admins. So that's why it's good to know who is in that group, and make sure that there's no overlap. This is like a best practice, and you can actually Google on how you might do this. Is you don't want to have users who are both local admins and then domain admins on the same box, because then their credentials are in the same place and they could be harvested and attacked. So that's just kind of a quick overview. So the net commands for figuring out which users are on the box and which users are part of the admin group tells you a lot. So that might come in handy during the competition. The next thing we're going to look at is netstat. So netstat, netstat is going to be used to show you active connections. The specific flags that we're going to use is ANO. A stands for basically like all connections. N is going to display numerical address and ports, and O is going to display the owning process ID. So what process ID essentially owns this connection. So there's going to be a lot. And you can kind of see this is from where is this connecting to where, and this is going to go slow just because I've got a couple things running, so my computer is going to be moving slow, but it's going to tell you a lot of the connections. The thing to remember is I'll kind of control C it. The thing to remember is, so this gives you a lot of information, and you are probably only going to be looking for specific things. So specific ports that are open, specific ports that are connected, and the easiest way to parse through such a massive list is using the find string command. This is similar to grep on Linux, if you're familiar with that. So basically what you could do is, for example, we can do netstat-ano, and we could pipe this into find string. We're going to ignore the case, and we can do, I don't know, we do 80. I mean, I don't need the back eye for that, but let's see what pops up. Okay, and then we get a list of lines that contain 80 within it. So you got a couple, so you got like 5, 6, 480, which isn't exactly what I'm looking for, but it's really, you know, it narrows down this massive list to something that's a little bit more readable. So yeah, so this might come in handy for tracking down connections. So let's say I'm on my Windows machine and I know Red Team has a connection. Well, I could kind of look through it using netstat and then the find string to kind of narrow down my search, so I don't have to parse this gigantic list. Another useful flag for netstat is the -b flag, and I'm actually going to have to run this on a administrator command prompt. And if you don't remember how to open an administrator command prompt, all you got to do is just type cmd in your search bar. Command prompt, right click it, and run as administrator, and you'll have an administrator command prompt. This requires admin privileges, but essentially a useful flag is netstat, and we're going to do all the ones we did previously, so -ano, and then b, which is the one we're looking for. Now this one, I'll control C it right here, but the -b flag tells you which process or which executable process was involved in creating this connection, which might be useful because if you're, I don't know, let's say the red teamer is using Python, for example, to do a reverse shell. If Python is creating a connection and you're like 90% sure that Python should not be creating a connection, well, there you go. Then you found a potential red teamer's connection. So that's where this might come in handy. So that's kind of like the overview of the users, and the netstat command. A couple other net commands is netuse. Whoops, not net user, net use, and net session, which will, oh right, forgot this one also. So net session also requires administrator privileges. Net session is basically going to tell you which active sessions are currently connected to the box. So if a user authenticates remotely to this machine on a user, it's going to tell you that he has an open session using the net session command. There are no entries in this list for me because I don't have any connections. Nobody's connecting and logging into my machine as myself. But if you're on a Windows server, this might be the case. And the netuse command will basically show you shared resources. So something like a network drive will pop up here. There's no entries in the list because I don't have any shared network drives. This netuse is probably less relevant for the competition, but it's just a good command to know if you're ever doing something later on. But net session will definitely be relevant for this competition.
All right, on to the next set of commands. We're going to be covering some things that have to do with finding tasks, killing tasks, and then searching through directories and or other files. So first thing we're going to cover is tasklist. This will list all your tasks, as the name might suggest. It's a little bit similar to what your task manager does. It just doesn't display as much information. Now the thing is going to output a gigantic list. So if you're searching for just one thing in particular, like let's say I have my Brave browser open, as you can see the little icon, and I want to see what the PID of those associated processes is, I could do task list, and then I can pipe it to find str, ignore case, and look for Brave. Okay, and so again, I'm doing tasklist, which is going to output this gigantic list. This command right here is going to pipe, so it's basically sticking the output of this. Instead of having it go to the terminal, it's going to go to the find string command, and then find string command searches through for any instances of Brave within these lines. So when I do that, I get back this, and I have all of my instances of Brave running. Here's the associated PIDs, and now I know what's running. So this might be useful if you're trying to track down rogue pieces. Like if you have, say, a thing of malware, and you have like a malware executable running, and you know its name, or you think you know its name, you can find it using this. To kill process, all you're going to do is just go task kill, and then enter the PID. And that should be /PID, and let's kill, I don't know, let's see, we'll kill, actually let's not, we're not going to kill a Brave session because that might close something important. We'll kill this mysqld.exe, and this PID is 4948, so 4948. Access is denied, could not be terminated. Okay, so I would just need to do this with elevated privileges. Good thing we got this terminal open, so we go task kill /PID 4948. Oh, with -F, okay. And sometimes processes don't wanna die, so you just do -F. That was really gruesome. Oh, messing up my commands, my bad, guys. There you go. Success, and it has been killed. So sometimes you got to kill, if it's elevated processes, you might need to, run kill, task kill as administrator in order to kill it. So fairly straightforward. Another thing that I want to cover is outputting. So you guys noticed how I did I piped the output of one of a program into another program. You can also pipe the output of a program to a file. So let's say I want to pipe the output of tasklist into a file. The way you do that is using this caret. So it's going to take the output and write it to a file as opposed to just handing it over, as you saw with this. So if you want to write the output of a command to a file that you've named right here, just do that, and then it will write it there. This might take a second because my computer's going a little bit slow, but that's okay. And this might be useful in case you've got, in case you want the output of a program and then you want to go back and parse through it, use find string on it, or if you want to modify it in any way, this might come in handy for the competition. I believe John mentioned this in his video as well. So you can do type. Also, type is how you write out the contents of a file. So if I do type test file.txt, it's going to display what's in that file to the command line. So as you can see, like that. So that might come in handy in case. So to kind of reiterate, we went over task list, which tells you the process names that are currently running on your machine. We went over find string, which might help you find particular strings in an output. Task kill is to actually kill process. It's like ending task in your task manager. We also went over piping the output of a program into a separate file, and now we're going to cover finding a file. So let's quickly try to find a file that we know exists. We could do, sure, let's pick something. We'll do testfile.txt. Okay, so clear that. We'll go out of directory to demonstrate how this might work. And what we're going to do is run this command. It's dir whack a /s/t, and I will explain what each of these commands mean, and the thing that we're searching for, which is testfile.txt. Alright, so dir basically lists the contents of the directory. Hopefully you guys know that by now. If not, totally okay. That's what we're going over here. A is for all files with the attribute, so our attribute is this name. S for S is like where am I searching, so we're going to search for the current directory and all subdirectories, so we're going to look in desktop and all the associated folders that might be in desktop. And T is for the time field, so the time field that displays, you can specify which time field. Are we talking about the time that this file was created, the time that this file was last accessed? And this might be useful because you can search for a file that was or you could search for a particular file and then have the date be right there where it was last accessed. So let's say some malicious actor is on your machine. They've created a particular file. You know what that file's name is. If you do /t:\a, it's going to display the time that that file was last accessed. So let's run it. It finds it right away. It shows me that it's in the subdirectory within desktop, my folder called delme, and it gives me some information about the file. It found it using the name, so we know the name, so we just search for it. Tells me exactly where it is, and when it was last accessed, and some other info about that. So that might be good for finding some EXEs, like let's say someone's running Mimikatz on your thing, you could use it to find where that might be, or some other piece of malware. So on to the next thing. Alright guys, the last set of tools that we will be going over that might come in handy if you're defending a Windows environment are the wmic, or I like to call it the wmic. wmic is like a Windows management instrumentation tool set that's usually used by sysadmins to just get access to information that might be helpful to them. And lastly, we're going to be looking at this thing called Event Viewer, which might be helpful in finding some malicious events. So first wmic command we're going to use is wmic net login get name and start name. Nope, I lied. Wrong thing. Last log on. Count. There you go. Okay, and so what this is showing is the name of the user when they last logged on and how many bad password attempts did they have before they finally logged on. So usually Windows accounts will have like timeouts, but in case they don't and your account is susceptible to brute force, I mean, it's going to be pretty obvious, especially because your bad password count is displayed right here, and it'll probably be some ridiculous number. But it's just good to see when the last time was that a user has logged in. So might come in handy. The next thing is finding services. So wmic get name. This will, whoops, wrong thing. There we go. This will display all of the currently running services on your machine. This might come in handy just because some services can be potentially malicious, and they could also be used for a number of, to not make this overly complicated, some services might be used for privilege escalation, so it's good to be aware of what services are currently on your machine. For future competitions that you guys might do, it might be good to get a baseline of what services are running and compare that to some future point where you think you might have a malicious service or a piece of malware running. But that's what's useful. It's also it provides you so not only the service name but also who or what spawned that service. So it just kind of tells you all that good stuff. The last thing is also if you want to find a particular service, like you think SQL is running on this machine, but you're not 100% sure, and you want to verify, you could do wmic service, and you go where name like, and let's try to see. I think SQL is running on this machine, so let's see let's try to find if that's true. So we'll do our names like SQL percent. Okay, and so what this is doing is it's again, it's using the wmic instrumentation. It's telling me to list the services, and I'm specifically looking for a service where the name looks like SQL. The percent signs are just kind of like wildcards, so as long as it has SQL in the name, display it, and it'll tell me the name and the name of the services, or the person that started it. Run that. Let's see if SQL is running. SQL is indeed running. We've got MySQL running, and here's the start name. So that's good. The last thing, the last wmic command that might come in handy is and what this is going to do is display the location of your event logs. So this might be useful in case you're trying to set up Splunk and you're trying to figure out where your events are, or your logs are. Well, there you go. This gives you the logs for PowerShell, system, applications, security, all that good stuff. And it might just be good in case you want to, like manually, you don't have time to set up Splunk and you just want to manually go through the logs and you think there might be something in there. You could use, read through the logs using find string or some other thing. So that might come in handy. Not saying it will, but it might. So I'm just trying to prepare you guys for everything that I can. And the last thing we're going to take a look at is the event viewer. So the event viewer is, if you're on a Windows machine, you come over to your search bar, just type event viewer, and then click that. It'll pop up. I already have mine running. Move it right over here. And event viewer, basically whenever something important happens on a Windows machine, typically an event will be created. So like security events, application events, system events, they almost always have codes associated with them that might indicate whether something has gone wrong or something's bad. So we can look at our security events. Our security events in particular might be useful for finding some potential attacks. There's a couple in particular that come to mind, namely like pass the hash, and a couple others. But if we take a look at what an event looks like, double click it, we'll kind of go through, explain a little bit of what the event sort of looks like. So you could just see some general information like the ID. The event ID is like pretty much the most important thing. You kind of Google like what each event ID means, but depending on the attack, there might be some events that are associated with the attack that indicate that it's actually going on, and that's why the event properties, or the event viewer, is useful for tracking those down. For this one in particular, got logon type 5. This was just a logon event, so and I believe I remember correctly, this one is just running something as with elevated privileges, if I'm not mistaken. So that's all this one's doing. But the 4624 is a event ID that might be used, or it's used in other attacks. So that's why I pointed this one out in particular. Yeah. So to kind of summarize, events are created when specific things happen. Events might be useful in indicating whether an attack is going on or not. And the way you look at events is through the event viewer. Events have IDs associated with them, so it might be good to, usually when you look up an attack, say pass the hash, you'll get a list of IDs that might be associated with it. So that might be useful. And in this case, I just gave the example of this event. It's 4624. It's just a successful logon, and that's pretty much everything I have. So, summarize, guys, we went over some useful commands using wmic, and then just looked over the event viewer. I will be sharing additional information if you guys want to do some digging to prepare further for the competition. Everything I covered, you guys should be good, but just in case you want to do some additional stuff, it's always great. And of course, with CyberHawks, we do other competitions that are a little bit more involved, that require you to know a little bit more, so it's always good to think ahead for the future with those. And of course, if you want to actually do this for a living and get into the industry, always very helpful. So hopefully this was useful, and hope you guys have a great time with the competition.